Right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. For any viewers, I'm Councillor John Walsh. I'm Chairman of the Planning Committee. We have this afternoon members of the committee supported by officers of the Council, planning officers Sim Manley, Alex Allen, Jodie Turton, Helen Williams and Martin Mansell, Nicola Raby from the Council's Legal Department, and Susan Bailey and Vicky Ridge, who are running the meeting on behalf of the Borough Solicitor's Office. So, item 1, declarations of interest, and I know that a number of members have got declaration of interest on the application 8816/20 at Lever Gardens. Myself, Councillor Newall, Councillor Ratcliffe, Councillor Sherrington.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest?
Right.
Chair, what are the nature of the interest, please?
Members of the steering group for Bolton Cares.
And it's a baby for
Uh,
Give him a job. Yeah, get it. So
I've
Are
got,
there any other?
got interest, but I was just going to say I don't have to leave the meeting though.
No.
Okay. Right.
What is your
No,
interest, Councillor Sherrington?
I think it's to do with the fact that I'm a shadow spokesperson for adults, and I'm also on Bolton Cares.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Right, okay, thank you.
Are there any other declaration of interest?
Yes, please, Chair.
Yes.
It's Councillor Howarth, Chair. May I declare on 09252/20, I and another had a misunderstanding about whether that would be a committee item, so I made comments and therefore I'm not partaking in the decision today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
John, can I just clarify with Nicola? We don't have to declare an interest because we're exec member, do we? It's got no pecuniary interest or anything in it.
No, that's correct.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 2, urgent business. Nothing has been brought to my attention, but I will at this point make an apology to members who had anticipated that following the last meeting, we would have an updated schedule of enforcement cases, which we agreed would come to this meeting. The report was not completed, and I didn't think it was appropriate to bring a partial report to this meeting, so I asked officers to work on that and to bring it to the next normal meeting of this committee. Item 3, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we've got apologies today from Councillor Ayub, the Vice. Councillor Abdullah is here in his place. We've also got apologies from Councillor Darvish and from Councillor Wilkinson, but Councillor Newall is here in his place.
Thank you very much. Item 4, minutes of the last meeting. These have been circulated. Members contend that they're a correct record.
Move them, Chair.
Thank you. I see no dissent. Take it therefore acquiescence to that, members. Thank you. We come then to item 5, the planning application, the report of the Director of Place, which has been circulated. If I could just explain for participants who are not normally members of the Planning Committee or observers on this occasion, the process will be that we will take each application, not in the order on the list, but in an order circulated to members previously. The report of the officers will be summarised and presented by an officer, the Planning Department. I will then invite a ward councillor who wishes to speak, if any, who can speak for 5 minutes. I will then invite an objector, if registered, to speak for up to 3 minutes and to take any questions from members of the committee. I will then ask a supporter, if any are registered, to speak for up to 3 minutes and again to take questions from members of the committee. If members have then got a question to officers, I would invite them to pose questions at that point before opening the matter up for debate. But I remind members of the committee, if you wish to ask a question or to speak, if you could note it in the chat box so that we have a record of those who wish to participate. And could I also remind you that the chat box becomes a public record, and therefore only comments appropriate to this committee should be included in that chat box. The first application we're going to take today is on page 63, application 9074, and it relates to 27 Barnfield Close. And Helen Williams is going to present this report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a resubmission of an application that was refused last year under delegated powers and then was subsequently dismissed at appeal. The layout plan of the previously refused dwelling and the planning inspector's appeal decision can be found at pages 82 and 85 of the report. Officers consider that the applicant has now fully addressed the previous reasons for refusal and the concerns that were raised by the inspector within their decision. It is considered that this has been achieved by the substantial resiting and reorientation of the dwelling, so that it is now set more to the side of number 27 rather than being sited to the front and dominating the head of the cul-de-sac. The dwelling will also now face Cox Green Road rather than Barnfield Close. The siting of the dwelling also negates the need for fencing around a garden at the head of the cul-de-sac, as the garden is now proposed to the northern side of the dwelling adjacent to 221 Cox Green Road. The part of the site at the head of the cul-de-sac is now proposed for parking, hard standing and lawns for number 27 and the new dwelling. Only a low wall is now proposed between the two curtilages, therefore the open aspect across the site is considered to be retained. The resiting of the dwelling also improves the development's relationship and interface distances with the neighbouring dwellings. Officers are therefore recommending that members approve this application subject to conditions, including conditions that would remove permitted development rights for any extensions, outbuilding, fencing or walls, or any increase in the height of the proposed wall to maintain the open aspect at the head of the cul-de-sac. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I invite Councillor Greenhalgh as Ward Councillor, please, to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to committee members for allowing me to speak today on this application. I'll be speaking against this application today. I fully accept, I want to start by saying that I fully accept that the developer has gone to lengths to change the plan and to make efforts to respect the reasons why he has not only refused under delegated but failed to gain anything on appeal last time. But I still feel, as do the vast majority of residents, well, all the residents I've spoken to on Barnfield Close, that this is setting not only a very dangerous precedence, but it is also still impacting on the street scene, which is detrimental to, as has been pointed out in the last appeal decision. I realise it's facing Cox Green Road now. I realise there have been measures undertaken, but the reality is there will still be an additional dwelling at the top of this cul-de-sac, which, as you can see, and I know there's not been opportunities for a site visit, but is designed in such a way that moves outwards, as you could imagine. That terminology is not fantastic, I know, as the dwellings move up the cul-de-sac. It's designed in a certain way to create a view across the moors. And while I appreciate nobody is entitled to a view, I'm not talking about a personal view here of an individual in a certain house. I'm talking about the street scene of how that cul-de-sac has been purposefully created, and it's worked now since its inception. It's been respected since development, and I think this will be the beginning, unfortunately, of many possible applications, setting a very dangerous precedent for this part and in many other parts of the borough. We've seen, you know, if I can term it in a very general view, but garden grabbing to build other developments and other buildings. And I still feel this will have a real negative impact on Barnfield Close and the precedent it will set in many other cul-de-sacs across the borough that are designed in a particular way to adhere to that street scene. And so I would urge members to back the residents, the majority of residents in Barnfield Close, and refuse this application today, which if you look at the inspector's report, heavily impact on street scene, and I do believe this still impacts on that level of street scene if people look at the plans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. There are no other speakers on this, so the matter is open for debate. Councillor Connor, Ward Councillor, do you want to speak on the matter?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just really want to echo what Councillor David Greenhalgh has said. There have been 12 objections to this proposal, and I just want to emphasise that it would be very detrimental to the appearance and the street scene of the area. It would impact on the outlook and the living conditions also of the neighbours and the residents. And I think it's a very dangerous precedent that could be set for future developments of this area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this one, please? Councillor Peel.
Thanks, Chair. I wasn't intended to speak, but I felt that no other member was indicated, and to give due justice to the officer report, you do need to have a balanced argument to this. I listened very carefully to what Councillor Greenhalgh said, and I think there's a couple of problems with his argument. The previous application was lost on appeal. But the reasons that the inspector gave for that have now been addressed, so there's a problem there, which would indicate to me that if this was refused again, and there was an appeal, that would then not be upheld because those previous reasons have been rectified. That's issue number one. Issue number two is it is clearly within policy, within our local policies, hence our officers recommending approval. And reason number three, I've got to take issue with what Councillor Greenhalgh said in terms of setting a precedent. As members of the planning committee know, there isn't any such thing as a precedent in terms of planning. It's all about good quality planning consents within policy. And in terms of saying it'll set a precedent for garden grabbing, that's a bit disingenuous, because of course, garden grabbing is a negative term that's used to describe something which is entirely permissible within the planning system and has been going on for decades. And each application is judged on its merits when somebody comes in with a single dwelling in a large garden. Members must make their own judgment when each of those come in. But to say it would set a precedent for garden grabbing across the borough is a bit, I think that's stretching it a bit. These types, as I say, these types of applications are quite commonplace actually. On those grounds, I'm going to actually support the officer recommendation and vote for the application. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan. Councillor Morgan, you're muted.
Do apologise, John. Yeah, I'd like to second refusal on the grounds of the detrimental impact to the street scene, and also just the street scene changes really.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just clarify? Did Councillor Connor actually move refusal?
I was going to ask that same question.
Thank you.
Councillor Connor, were you actually moving refusal?
Yes, I was. Sorry, Chair. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Councillor Mystery.
Thank you, Chair. Just quick one. Am I on? Yeah. As my colleague backed it for approval, did Nick Bill say he was going to approve? I'll second that for approval.
Okay, thank you.
I think the reasons are straightforward. I think if the bill is lost, if we refuse it today, the guy is going to appeal against it because you can see he's determined to have a property there, and second time round the inspector is going to see in a different light. And for those reasons, I think it's only fair that we give this application an opportunity to develop this place what he wants to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to go with Councillor Peel, but Councillor Mystery has already done that, so it's for the same reasons. Going with the officer recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sherrington.
Yes, I'd only put my hand up, Chair, to second the approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. It's Councillor Sherrington's just sorry, no, Councillor Sherrington was approved. I would second refusal because it's good that it's being built. It's happy to be built on the facing the other side of the road, but the location of the house where it's angled is not in keeping with the street scene. So I'll be happy to second refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no other speakers indicating. It has therefore been moved and seconded that this application be refused. It's a straight vote, therefore, as to whether we are in favour of refusal or approval. I will take the vote for refusal, as that was moved first. So members,
to take the vote.
Members wishing to vote for refusal.
Yes, Chair. It's for, against, abstain. I'll read out the names now. Councillor Abdullah, for refusal or against or abstain.
Against.
Councillor Connor.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Howarth.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
Against.
Councillor Hornby.
Against.
Councillor Mystery.
Against.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Newall. Councillor Newall.
Sorry, for.
For refusal. Councillor Peel.
Against.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
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 Councillor Sanders.
Against.
Councillor Sherrington.
Against.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
Just bear with me. That's 8 for refusal. And 7 against refusal. So it's refused, Chair.
Thank you. That application is refused. Thank you very much indeed. We move then to application on page 4, the Coppice Firs Road. Mr. Allen, to present this one, please.
Chair, can we just wait until the supporter joins the meeting, please?
Sorry, have we not got them on? Apologies for that.
I have just spoken to him and he is going to dial it. He's dialing in now.
Right. Sorry, I thought he was here. Apologies.
No problem. Chair, I'm just going to admit the supporter now.
Thank you.
Mr. Kamani should be in the meeting now. Can you confirm that, please?
Thank you. I am.
Thank you.
You're here. Thank you, Mr. Kamani. Can I just explain, Mr. Kamani? I'm John Walsh. I'm the chairman of the Planning Committee. The report was presented by the Planning Officer, Mr. Allen. I will then invite you to speak for 3 minutes and to take any questions that members of the committee may have before we debate the application. So, Mr. Allen, please, if you could present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, like to draw members' attention to the supplementary information list, which is a range of additional information on. Firstly, in terms of the tally of objection responses that have been received, kind of a mini breakdown of the number of households that they have derived from. In terms of some new comments, we've received a neutral opinion from a neighbour regarding the site. Also, correspondence from Councillor Bullock, who's a ward councillor who's written in support of the proposal, and I believe members have had that emailed to them directly as well. And then obviously an officer's response at the bottom, and onto the next page, page 2 and 3. Just some background in terms of how the current site has evolved from its overgrown state, about 10 years ago, and then obviously demolition of the house, clearance of the vegetation, and some matters regarding planning enforcement as well. So dealing with the main body of the report, obviously members, having read the report, you will be aware that the application is finely balanced, which is the reason why the application is brought for your consideration this afternoon. The proposal is for the erection of one 3-storey detached dwelling house with a below ground basement and an associated garage and outbuilding with associated landscaping. The site originally hosted a modest property called the Coppice, which fronted the Firs Road, which was demolished in 2019. In terms of the overall character of the wider area, this is mixed, as is described within the report, in terms of the space around buildings, which is critical to members' decision today. With the exception of numbers 14 and 12 Shillington Road, the houses facing or sitting adjacent to the boundaries of the site benefit from established hedgerows of significant depth and height. The setback spaces and landscaping are a defining characteristic of the local area. Numbers 14 and 12 Shillington Road instead have solid rendered walls as their means of creating private space to their frontages, with space behind the walls for planting. The walls themselves are set back from the pavement edge some 3 to 4 metres. In terms of the key considerations, members will be aware that significant amendments have been achieved to the design and appearance of the property during the lifetime of the application. Landscaping proposals have been revised 3 times with street scene drawings submitted to Vic Solutions. Blanched trees are now proposed, but would only ever screen the lower parts of the house and require regular maintenance to the non-natural growing frame. Insufficient space exists for trees of height to be planted or grown in space between a Firs Road elevation and the site boundary. However, when assessed against planning policy, the scheme complies with a majority of the policies such as architectural appropriateness, interface distances, privacy and highway matters. However, the position of the building relative to Firs Road and the deficient space set aside for landscaping fails to satisfy core strategy policies OA4 or CG3. The visual impact of the proposal on the exposed Firs Road boundary would fail to be consistent with the setback distances and depth, height of landscaping that help the existing houses reduce their visual impact on the street scene. The visual dominance of the dwelling would not be softened and would be out of character with the prevailing pattern of development for the lifetime of the development, fundamentally harming its character and thus being contrary to policy. Notwithstanding the planning merits of the scheme, the harm discussed in the report has resulted in the current reason for recommendation for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Kamani, You now have 3 minutes to address the committee and then to take any questions that members may have at the end of that presentation. Would you like to start, please?
Sorry, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Sorry, just putting into context my involvement in this site. My neighbour, Old Earth, at one stage when the site became available to purchase, he's a good friend of myself. I purchased that property from the agents. The site was cleared legally, and the demolition was done legally, as per and consulted with the council. Every step of the way, since 2016 through to 2020 now, we've been in conversation with the council. What has happened is that an officer called Chris Hammersley had left the council and left it dormant and pending. The first application was not suitable, so we withdrew it. I think there's certain issues regarding that, so we completely withdrew it. We went back to the drawing board. My family consists of a small family. We're professionals. We work in the NHS. Also, I am a civil servant by nature as well. We're a private family, and this is going to be our family home. I intend to actually bring my mother, my sister, who are disabled, mentally disabled, and learning disability disabled, to actually live with us. The space has been designed to actually allow that freedom for her development and their development, as well as my family's development. Now, I currently live within the Bolton area. I've been a resident of Bolton, born and bred. I lived in Bolton for 25 years. I intend to actually live in Bolton for the rest of my days. But doesn't mean the fact that I'm there to trespass over other people's rights. Now, with the fact that the council officers have been in conversation with myself, my team and myself have been in conversation with the council officers. Now, even right through to the nth hour, the landscape officer, and we got an independent landscape officer, and we actually drew another plan, which effectively went in tandem with what the council wanted. They had a conversation at the nth minute, and we put everything that the council wanted. At all stages of the way, this house has been developed with the council. The officer concerned has actually given us drawings and said, do this, do this, do this. Even the distance from Firs Road to the house is near enough exactly the same as it was for the old house. So we can't understand why it's been pulled, said it's trespassing over land. The interfaces between the next houses are in similar guises as well. Now, understand that it was a barren piece of land, but that's not my issue. The issue is that was previous to my occupation, and it should never be my issue, you know. And I think what I'm trying to do is actually bring a home which will suit the property, will suit the area. But at the same token, if you look at the surrounding areas, all the properties are interfaced differently.
Mr. Kamara, you've had your 3 minutes. Would you like to just sum up in one sentence, please?
Yeah, what I'm trying to get to is that this is a family home for myself and my disabled family. I intend to actually live here and see that I can actually blend into the neighbourhood and be a quiet neighbour to actually live with.
Thank you very much indeed. 3 minutes passes very quickly when you're making a detailed case, so I'm sorry about that.
No
question, please, from Councillor Howarth.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I've got the diagram in front of me. I'm just speaking to the applicant. I just want to ask you a couple of things, please. So it's the diagram that shows the layout, 3D if you like, and one of the issues before us today is the closeness, of course, of the long side of the building on Firs Road. But just before I ask you about that, I just want to ask you about the placing on this plot, because if I can call it on the left-hand side, which is when I'm looking at the property where the entrance is from the road. Sorry, I've just Sherdington, that's right. I've just clicked off where that road is named. Sorry about that. Looking at it face on Sherdington. On the left, of course, there's that garage, isn't there? Can you just run by me again why the garage is on that side, and then you've got space, of course, behind the garage, which is meaning that the longest part of the property is on the Firs Road side, and then of course I just want to ask you about that and the issues there are there. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry, Councillor. I think the garage and the house and the positioning of the house were actually suggested by the council actually. Now to be quite converse, we had a garage at the back of the house on Firs Road at one stage, and we were told to lift it from there and bring it to this side and to reposition it in a quarter of the house.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry about the delay. I'm just waiting for what we call the red line. But thank you for that. Perhaps I'll just speak before the red line. So I just want to talk about what I call the right-hand side. Obviously, if I'm looking at this from Sherdington Road. So you've got the right-hand side is long, isn't it? Because you've got windows there, and then you've got the piece there where there's a balcony, and then it goes to, if I can call it, that back part of the building, which has got the long glass door and everything. And the report that I've got, sorry, I'll just finish. The report that I've got says that in terms of the policies, unfortunately, I'm presented with something that's not right yet. The argument on policy is that there's not enough space to get the landscaping done. And I suppose it's looking to see if that the plan you've put forward could be changed in any way, so there's more space to get landscaping on Firs Road. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor, can I just reiterate one thing? When you go for advice to planning officers and the council, and we start at a certain line and then we push it back, and then it comes to a stage where it's acceptable, and then we design everything else around that. That's what's happened, and we've not come back and we've not said we want to push it back any further or pull it further out towards Firs Road. It's migrated in that kind of manner, and the building line itself is near enough as per the old house it was. It's not. I think it's slightly further away from Firs Road, if I'm not mistaken, from the old building line. So if the old building was actually stood there and that corner was there, it would be further in. And if you saw the pictures of the vegetation that was already there, in fact, my landscape architect and everybody else, an independent landscape architect, has found it. The fact that there's plenty of space to actually grow vegetation. It's the class of vegetation that you put there, the dynamics and the way that you actually plant. Now, I've got no problems in planting, and even the plan that's come now has actually come about from the two landscape architects at the last moment speaking, and my landscape architect said to the council architect, "What do you want?" And he said, "This is what I want," and he said, "Fine," because that's exactly what we put in the picture.
Thank you. Councillor Newall. Sorry, Councillor Howarth, did you want to come back on that?
No. Thank you.
Councillor Howarth, did you want to come back?
No, forgive me. I was just saying thank you
right.
to the applicant. Thanks so much.
Councillor Newall, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mr. Kamani, in two occasions in the officer's report, the officers say on paragraph 22, they say that they asked you for further amendments and the applicant didn't comply. And also in paragraph 24, it says the applicant refuses to comply with requests to increase space by altering the footprint. Would you like to comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor. To be quite honest, I don't know how to actually convey this, and this relates to my frustration of the fact that this has taken 2 years to get to where it's at your table today. The fact that we've had multiple conversations, and then the officers actually said this is acceptable, and then you come back with a shopping list to say no, X, Y, and Z. And the goalposts kept on changing. All we said is give us a decision. On something that is appropriate to yourself. If you want to draw it for me and you want to give it to me, that was my last. I shouldn't even say that, but the thing is, I did, out of frustration, I did say, draw me a house and tell me what you want, and I'll do that. And we came, like Alex has said, we've had so many conversations, toing and froing, and that you know, the footprint was even in a different dynamic way. It was different, and we have reduced the footprint. We put more landscaping in. We put an underground, how shall I say, a garden in, which was part of Grand Designs. It was an award-winning garden. We got the same architect to do that. He said he didn't like it. We took it out. I'm sorry, but you know, we've done so many things that we've fallen over backwards in actually giving. So hence why even to this last point, Councillor, I apologise I'm saying this, but the thing is, we've asked to see how much communication we've done with the council and how much communication they've done with us. And I think this report was done on the basis of hearsay from one side. I'm getting my viewpoint now, and I tell you that ask Alex, ask other people, how many calls have been made to the council? Yeah, accessibility to the planning officer himself has been minimal. We've had to go through councillor, we've had to go through Alex Allen himself, and we've had to go through other parties to actually get our conversation through. Now, sometimes the frustration of going from A through to Z is one thing, but going from A to B has been such a nightmare.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Kamani.
Sorry.
Right, Mr. Kamani,
yes.
Thank you for that. So when the officers asked you for further amendments, did you comply or didn't you?
Totally complied. This last amendment is quite converse because if you've not got access to the full file, if you look at the full file and you get a full bona fide statement from the officer concerned, and you ask them, when exactly did you ask for this? I'm sure that conversation will state that it was after the final full plans were done and were agreed by them.
And when it says you refuse to comply with the request to increase space by altering the footprint, are you saying that that is incorrect?
Totally incorrect. We've moved the house and we've redesigned the house, I would say between 10 and 20 times, yeah, to meet council conditions. Now, 10 or 20 times when you go back to an architect, when you go back to a planning team, when you go back to look at other issues, when you go back to surveyors, it's not a 2-minute job. And I think if he's coming back and he's saying, move it back another 3 meters, then does that mean that I break the toy and start again?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kamani. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. There are no further questions. The matter is now open for debate. Councillor Peel, a question. Sorry, Councillor Peel, you have a question to Mr. Allen.
I do, Chair. Yeah. So the applicant's made a number of statements there, especially in response to the questions from Councillor Newell. So I feel it's only fair that our planning officer has their version of events. Within that, my question to Mr. Allen is, he said when he introduced the application that it was a balanced recommendation, hence why they've brought it to committee for a determination. But they've still made a recommendation to refuse. Perhaps he'd like to just talk us. There's a bit more detail on how they reached the recommendation to refuse, and in particular, can he talk to us about paragraph 61, which says if members are minded to come to a different conclusion and grant permission, then there's a whole list of conditions there. Why that wasn't the preferred option rather than a recommendation to refuse. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. Mr. Allen.
I mean, I think being frank, I mean, obviously, as Mr. Kamani has said, there's been a huge amount of time spent on both sides to get I suppose get to a place where, well, with the ideal would have been obviously to get for officers to be able to recommend approval of the scheme, and there's been say in the report, and I've said up prior to this, that we spent a lot of time with Mr. Kamani, not necessarily because obviously the council isn't here to design a scheme for Mr. Kamani. That's his and his architects and his landscape architects' job to do that. Obviously, we can only give them, I suppose, not broad ideas, but concepts or perhaps some ideas of kind of what in terms of character of the house and the scale, which would be more appropriate. I think with the house we are there, but from a I look back today at the landscape comments, which go back to I think August last year, and it was raised at that stage that there really wasn't enough space. Because the Firs Road Shirlington junction is very prominent, and so we've kind of evolved the house, but unfortunately I suppose the landscape, which is kind of fundamental to the character of the area, and the design hasn't, the space allowed for it's sufficient density and height, I suppose, to not screen it, but kind of to soften that gable of the house. It isn't considered to be sufficient, and I think I can certainly understand Mr. Kamani's frustration. And from a landscape perspective, we've had fair, I think it was fair to say that the landscape discussion has intensified over the last few months in terms of coming and going in terms of a proposed landscape, and our landscape architect is of the view that yes, if members wish to think that the proposal is in character, there's sufficient landscaping to soften the development. Obviously, that's a view that could be taken, and our landscape architect have confirmed that they find the current scheme as submitted acceptable for the space, for what you can fit within the space between the gable and Firs Road, subject to some minor changes to the boundary treatment. So obviously, what we're trying to say is, there are a lot of positives about the scheme. We've come a long way, but we're not really quite there. And I can appreciate the journey that Mr. Kamani has been on and the length of time it's taken. That to be fair, he just wants a decision, and either way, and then he can move forward in whatever direction he needs to. But fundamentally, it's a landscape and the character of the area, which is from officers' perspective, is certainly the critical thing to discuss and to consider and come to a view on. We've come down on the side of that space isn't enough. From a distance perspective, I spoke to a case officer, and I think we'd look for roughly a 4 metre distance between Firs Road and the gable, and I think currently it sits at, bear with me, it sits at the space for landscaping is approximately about 2.7 metres. So it's it's not that far off in terms of the changes that would be needed to make it an acceptable scheme from plan officer's perspective. But it is a finely balanced recommendation. So just to answer your final question, Councillor, in terms of paragraph 61, I think it's 61. Obviously, that isn't if members are minded to overturn the officer's recommendation. Those are only suggested conditions picked out from the various sections of the report. If members were to go with an approval, then we would expect the proposal to be delegated to the directors to allow us to formalise with the applicant any required conditions, and in discussion with the chair, vice chair and ward councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Councillor Hayes, to open the debate, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you said, I think the frustration did obviously come through. We've an applicant here who seemingly has made a lot of attempts to get something that's acceptable, and it is sometimes very difficult. But I think the conditions mentioned in paragraph 61, I think many of them would satisfy the issues, and I would like to formally move that this should be delegated to the director that we indicate it should be approved and that the conditions in paragraph 61 should be negotiated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. Councillor Newall.
Thank you, Chair. Are we in debate now? We're in the debate.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. I'd like to support refusal of this, and I have several reasons why. As I previously stated in the report, and we can only go off the report in front of us today, the officers have asked for further amendments which haven't been complied with, and the applicant, they say, has refused to comply with requests to increase space by altering the footprint. Now, if this is approved, presumably we're going to put conditions in to make sure that these things are complied with. And given that I'm not a fan of conditions now, oops, there we go. I'm not a fan of conditions now, given as it would seem that when conditions are breached on occasion, it has to be proved that harm is caused by these breaches. And this has happened several times. So I'm not convinced that we would get, it would comply with what's required. The other thing I have an issue with, and again, we're back to interface. In paragraph 33, they're talking about interface yet again being mitigated by obscured glazing. And I know we've had this conversation before at committee, but we've gone one further from obscured glazing. It now says that windows could be fixed shut below eye level. And I'm absolutely staggered that anybody would suggest that having windows fixed shut in a bedroom from a safety point of view. It's horrendous. So I'm happy to support refusal on this because I am not satisfied that approval would see conditions being met. And I'm also not happy with the interface argument yet again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mystery.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I go back to what officers Alex Allen just said. This is a finely balanced application that's come before us. Listening to what Mr. Kimani had said, you know, his application coming in 2016 and we are in 2020. It's taken a long time just to get the planning application approved for just building one house when we pass big ones, which takes only 2 years to go through. So that's first point. The second thing is the plot one was that he has acquired is quite big, and the houses on that particular area are all of different characters. This is not, you know, this is going to be a new house in a similar spot, but will be in line with most of the properties within the area. So I have no problem in terms of what it's going to look like and whether the property fits within the area, because it is in line with the existing houses on that particular area. The second thing is one of the, you know, looking at one of the, I think it's Councillor Bullock is a ward councillor there, and he's backing the idea. He doesn't see any problem with this particular application, and for those reasons, you know, I think not to further Mr. Kimani's frustrations, I will move approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with most of what Councillor Mystery has said. I think it's a very balanced view that he gives. I think it's a very close call, but on this occasion I'm actually going to take the views of the local councillor, Councillor Bullock. I think he's said a number of significant things about the land itself. I think it's been derelict and a bit of an eyesore, a bit overgrown for some time, and I think, you know, it has been a tough time for the applicant. They've obviously made significant amendments as has been stated by the officers. So I think that needs to be considered. So on this occasion, I'm going to take the side of the local councillor and second approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Peel.
Chairman, I'm going to, on balance, support Councillor Newland's second refusal. However, the reason I indicated to speak is Councillor Mystery and Dean have moved approval, but prior to that, Councillor Hayes moved that it be delegated. What I want clarification from yourself on, Chair, is if this application is to go through, can we ensure that the comments made by Councillor Hayes and myself in my question to Councillor Allen are taken on board, i.e. paragraph 61 with the recommended conditions to be implemented in conjunction with yourself and the Vice Chair and the Ward Councillors?
I would take the view that if we are minded to approve it this afternoon, we do so by delegating it to officers to come back with those conditions clarified in consultation with the Chair, the Vice Chairman, myself and the Ward Councillors.
Thanks, Chair.
Is that all, Councillor Peel?
It is, thanks, Chair.
Sorry. Mrs. Raby, you wanted to offer some advice at this point.
Yes, Chair. Just on that point, please, if members were minded to approve today, the recommendation would be to suggest that it's delegated to the director so that the conditions can be formalised and agreed with the chair and vice chair. And I think Mr. Allen mentioned that would be with the ward councillors as well. Also, if members are minded to approve today, because the applications recommended for refusal, reasons will need to be given to go against that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sherrington.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to support refusal, and my reasons are because I do think that it is overdevelopment of the site. I do think, and also I feel sorry for the applicant because the architect should have actually told him or explained to him what sort of size of building could go on there. And I do think that it's just too large for the site and brings back happy memories of Regent's Road, which no doubt our chair will remember. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no other speakers. Therefore, we have a proposal that this application should be delegated to officers for approval. It's a straight for or against as far as that's concerned, because it's not a deferral as such.
And is that with, Chair, is that with the conditions being agreed with the yourself and the Vice and the 3 ward councillors? Absolutely,
that's the very point, that delegated to officers in consultation to bring back to consultation with the members as referred. Councillor Hayes, you moved approval subject to that process. Presumably what you are saying is it is related to the conditions at paragraph 61.
Exactly, Chair. I think the conditions on paragraph 61 are very appropriate. I note that Alex Allen wants to come in, and it might be advantageous to hear him before we take a vote.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Allen.
Thank you. Just a very quick one, just pick up on the points of Councillor Sherrington. I don't think officers are saying that it is overdevelopment. It's more, I suppose, the relationship of the property with Furs Road and landscaping depth. So I don't think we could substantiate an overdevelopment reason. So if members are going for reason for the recommended reason for refusal is contained within the report. Thank you.
Councillor Hayes, are you now content that the paragraph 61 conditions are those which should be negotiated?
Yes, or at least the ones considered most appropriate. I mean, it's a very long list there, and they may not all be appropriate, but I think if you leave it to yourself, the vice chair and the ward councillors on recommendation of officers, yes, I'll be very happy with that.
Okay, so members now are minded to vote for or against delegation to officers in consultation. Can we take the vote, please?
Yes, Chair. So it's approve, refuse or abstain for delegation of the application to the director for approval. Councillor Abdullah.
Approve. For.
Councillor Connor.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Howarth.
Against.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Hornby.
For.
Councillor Mistry. Councillor Mistry.
Sorry for that. For.
For. Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Newall.
Against.
Councillor Peel.
Against.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
Councillor Sanders.
For.
Councillor Sherrington.
Against.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
That's approved, Chair.
The application therefore stands deferred to director in consultation with members. Thank you very much. We move then to page 31, application 8816, Lever Gardens, Little Lever. And I think Ms. Turton, you're dealing with this one.
Chair, can we just wait? Sorry,
I think whilst we're waiting for the porter for this application, I think Mr. Allen, did you want to come back?
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit late in the day, but I know Mrs. Raby did mention that members would have to give reasons for why they recommended approval of the subject to delegation. Obviously that's probably a bit late in the day.
I think members were reminded to say that the application could be achieved subject to the conditions. So
I suppose it complied with policy.
It complied with policy.
Complied with policies CG. What was it? CG
Indeed.
308.4.
Indeed.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're now waiting for a supporter for the application at page 31.
Chair, I think we may have Anna Meredith on the meeting. Can I just confirm?
Hiya, yeah.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Can I explain to you, please, that the process here will be that the application will be presented by planning officer, Mr. Turton. We will then invite you to speak for 3 minutes to present your support and then take any questions that members may have of you. We have no objection or ward councillor to speak on this matter. So, Mrs. Turton, please.
Thank you, Chair. The application is a former sheltered housing site close to the centre of Little Lever. The proposed extra care building is 3-storey with a 2-storey section facing Lever Street. 6 bungalows are also proposed, 2 facing Dearden Street and then 4 within the site area. The design layout and amenity space provision comply with policy. Sufficient car parking for the extra care building is proposed. No infrastructure contribution is required as the proposal is C2 use class. The application is before committee as although the site is owned by Bolton at Home, the council have made a capital contribution and will provide some care element in the scheme. 1 letter of comment has been received. Members' attention is drawn to the list of supplementary information. Landscape officers have agreed the amended landscape scheme and this is now conditioned. In addition to this, 2 typos have been spotted on paragraph 4.7 and in the executive summary, which refer to C3, not C2 use class. And in response to ward council comments, there has been an amendment to condition 3, which is for the construction management plan, which now includes provision for construction vehicle parking. The application is considered to comply with policy and members are recommended to approve the application subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We now invite Anna Meredith as a supporter of the application, please. You have 3 minutes.
Hello. Thank you. Hello, my name's Anna Meredith from Potsonia Architects. We submit the application. We understand the requirements of the local area with an ageing population, and the proposals are in line with Bolton's extra care strategy. The proposals look to replace the previous scheme, which was unfit for purpose, with 62 apartments and 6 bungalows for extra care use, along with the communal lounge and bistros, activity room. All the apartments are designed to meet the needs of the residents, providing flexible living solutions and in line with national space standards. The design incorporates sort of 2 main elevations. The first one we see is the approach from inside the site, which would be the way most people access the scheme. The main entrance has been emphasised by brick balconies surrounding a feature which sort of draws you towards the entrance. We also see the other elevation as the Lever Street elevation. This would be more prominent in terms of passing traffic along the site, so people who aren't actually coming in, but just to make the scheme known in the local area. This 2-storey elevation features a pitched roof and alternating bricks to give a modern reflection on the surrounding terrace houses. The remainder of the proposal is 3 stories. We've got a flat roof along the rest of the scheme, which is more sympathetic to the surrounding houses, keep the height of the building down. We've also used the same alternating brick patterns to provide visual relief along the elevations. It's not sort of striped to Lever Gardens, but we've used the different bricks to provide different relief along it. There's also significant landscape proposals which have been worked up to provide year-round visual amenity for residents from sat inside the building as well as outside using the space. I think that pretty much summarises the proposal, so I'm happy with that if anyone's got any questions.
Thank you very much indeed. I have a question from Councillor Hornby.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a lot of the questions that I did have already been addressed by our planning officer this morning, and I've also had conversations with Dominic from Bolton at home as well. 1 or 2 things that I would like to know though is in relation, first of all, in relation to the bin storage. Can you give us some more detail on that? The other concerns that I had was, I believe now that the bistro, which was originally going to be open to the public, will no longer be open to the public. It will just be for the residents that are on the development. And the other question that I have is 2 questions. One in relation to the existing fencing around the perimeter, which provided well security for the elderly people that was in the old development. Will that be remaining? And finally, the final question is in relation to what provision are we putting in there with regard to disabilities? I believe some of the bungalows are going to be adapted for people with disabilities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We're after questions there, please. Question to you, please, Ms. Meredith.
Mate, yeah, hiya. So I'll go backwards through your questions. So yeah, 2 of the bungalows have been designed to meet category M43 standard, which is wheelchair users dwelling. So they've been designed with that in category in mind. Yeah. The railing around the site is being retained. Yes, we feel that's in quite good condition, and as you say, provides a good secure boundary. So there's no need to replace that. The bistro, yes, correct. It was initially thought that the public would be invited in to use that, but that's changed, so it will only be residents now. And the bin store has been developed in line with, I can't remember the name of the person at the council who I spoke with, but we've come to an agreement on the space and requirements of number of bins in there. There's an external bin store which is, as shown on the site plan, near the entrance for access to bins, lorries to empty it. It's also really the best place on the site for it, just in terms of how the site's set out. It's the best place to work that. But in addition to that, we've got internal bin stores. We've got one on each floor so that residents are able to move their waste to the bin stores, and then the management strategy will look at how the waste is then took from the internal bin stores over to the external bin store. Did you have any other particular questions on the bin storage?
No, that'll do. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. No further questions for you, Ms Meredith, but a question from Councillor Hayes to officers.
Excuse me, Chair, I did actually have gone into chat.
Councillor Hayes has got a question in before you.
No, my question
officers.
my question was to the person, not to the officers.
Sorry, you put speak. I thought that was a question. I thought you wanted to speak in the debate, Councillor Sherrington. You didn't have down as a question. I'm sorry. Question, therefore, further question for Miss Meredith from Councillor Sherrington.
Right, thank you, Miss Meredith. Sorry about this. All it is that I was just wondering regarding, I know that you put in electric connections for cars outside, but I just wondered on the corridors, have you taken into consideration the width of the scooters that people drive around on when they're actually going to their flats? And I was just wondering whether the corridors have been made wide enough for one to pass the other, and whether there is any space for these to be hooked up onto electrics. The reason I'm asking this is because there is no indication on plans or anything that have come through on my planning information. So I was wondering if you could help me with that. Thank you.
Hi, yeah. So in answer to your first question, yes, electric car spaces will be provided, and that's one of the conditions which has been assigned to the application moving forward. The corridor width, I can confirm, yes, it is wide enough. All our schemes we design wide enough for scooters or wheelchairs to pass two side by side. So whilst they can pass, there is also breaks in the corridors, so places where it's a little bit wider, or sometimes on corners or something where there is just a little bit more space given to people who might just want a bit more space. Scooter charging, there is a scooter store provided on the ground floor, so it's just off the communal areas as you come in, and charging facilities will be in that scooter store. In terms of charging the scooters in the flats, I'm afraid I can't answer that immediately on the phone. I'd have to go through some of the documents to find out. A lot of our providers do prefer that the scooters are charged within the main scooter storage area, just because of the electric loading and any risk that there might be there. But usually there are charging points provided in the flats as well, but there wouldn't be any charging points provided in the corridors, if that's what you're asking.
No, I just wondered what you was doing about it, that's all. So I'm just interested in what you were actually dealing with it. That's all right. Thank you, Miss Meredith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I now have a question from Councillor Hayes for officers. Councillor Hayes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A relatively minor point. Under paragraph 61, my belief is that new homes bonus would have vanished by the time these are completed. So I think that's incorrect. We will not get a new homes bonus for these, will we?
I'm sorry, Councillor Hayes, I would have to double check that, I'm afraid. I don't know off the top of my head. Apologies.
I think looking at the budget report, that's been reported that it's being phased out, and I think this is the last year there will be a new homes bonus. Next year it disappears. We always know that the government are always very generous with these bonuses. They don't usually last very long.
Not a material planning matter, Councillor Hayes. You've made your point. Thank you. We come then to the debate. Can I invite Councillor Hornby as ward councillor, please?
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak first on this application. We've been a ward member. I can remember when the last application for this site came through, which was for the demolition of the former Lever Gardens site. The previous site only had 21 dwellings in it, plus the bungalows as well. This is a massive increase as to what we had before. It's an increase of 47 dwellings if you count the bungalows on top of that, in addition to the 21 that used to be there. It's another piece in the jigsaw for Little Lever. The first one being, of course, the health centre, which is now well underway and scheduled to be finished by about July of next year. And this, as well as the health centre, is being built locally by one of our local builders, Seddons, based in Farnworth, which I'm very pleased about. It is needed within the borough. As you know, this is the first of 5 schemes which are being put forward, and I'm very proud to say that the first one is here in Little Lever. I'm glad also to note that we are doing quite a bit there with regard to the disabled, because and also putting some modern facilities in there with the internet, with the things for charging of motorised scooters and all the rest of it. Just out of curiosity, I can answer Councillor Sherrington's comment with regard to where will they be charged. They will be charged in some stores which are on each floor, in order that these can be charged away from the dwellings in which they live in. I do realise that there was some concerns by local residents, but I think those have been addressed. One of them was the concern about parking. Well, in actual fact, I got some confirmation from Bolton at home. There is actually more car parking spaces there now than there was before. In addition to that, there are other car parking spaces around the site, and there are, in addition to that, 3 garages off Dearden Street belonging to Bolton Home, which are available for rent, and 4 garages off Lever Street, which are available for rent as well. The other concerns that residents had was in relation to the traffic flow on Dearden Street and Lever Street. Well, I believe that this will actually be addressed as part of the £4 million scheme that we have got for the Little Lever Town Centre. So again, that issue will be addressed as well. But I'm more than happy on this occasion to move approval on this application this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to second approval then, and say that the extra care housing scheme is designed to deliver both choice for residents and also some personal control while living independently there, because the whole emphasis on an extra care housing scheme is to have a good number of residents living together in a unit like this. Because then you have a mix of residents where some people have lower needs of care and others have need more care and support. And this mix, of course, is 62 apartments with bungalows. And that shows that you can, in this circumstance, find people getting less early frailty because they're living with residents, older adults who are living independently and who have good well-being. The other matter is the bungalows, and there are 6 bungalows, and they're going in where there are already sited some bungalows, and there at the rear is attractive private gardens. And I find that this application is particularly about this mix of apartments and bungalows in this whole setting that provides for the variety of what is policy, and we have that policy at Bolton Council for extra care facilities, as I was describing them earlier when I introduced my support for this extra care housing scheme. The only other thing I would add is it is quite clear the borough needs more extra care housing for the growing population, those of which who are going to be over 70, and these facilities are needed, certainly in the south of the borough, and this of course benefits particularly those that live in Little Lever and also Darcy Lever because of the closeness for extended families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sherrington.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this proposal, and I remember what the old place used to look like, and it really was not very, very good, and I was glad to see the back of it. And that was a proposal that was put forward while I was the Cabinet Member for Housing. And I do think that what is going to be provided here will see us probably through for quite a number of years, providing what the elderly will be wishing to have. So, I mean, it's sort of set up in a way that if robots come into being, they will be able to have robots in Little Lever. So I think that people will be exceedingly happy with what they will be offered by being offered to go to Little Lever and live in these particular in this particular accommodation. And like Councillor Hornby said, this is probably the first of many, and we can only welcome everything, but hope that if there is any innovation that comes in between time, that will be addressed as well, so that we can keep ourselves ahead of what is necessary to actually give to our elderly and our disabled in the town, because they deserve to actually have a good standard of living. And also it keeps, if they've got the right kind of things in that provision, then they will stay as independent as possible as well, which is very important to people's lives, which we've all been, which we all know about now because of the coronavirus, that being independent and being able to get out there is exceedingly important, although we've not been able to do it. So I can understand that if you were in a situation where you had less mobility, you would have greater needs, even when the coronavirus is not around. So I just hope that the people who go in here will enjoy the time of being there and get the best out of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Just waiting for the red light. Thank you. I approve of this development. It's good that social housing developers are helping the elderly. I have one. I'm glad that the bin storage has been brought up. That needs to be looked at. 2 of these bungalows were said to be wheelchair accessible. Now, the bin storage is a bit of a distance away and it's closed by doors. I just wondered, would it be possible to put bin storage areas just for the 2 bungalows? Now, I know Councillor Hornby has approved it. I'm just wondering also if what he would think about this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you clarify that, Ms. Turton?
Sorry, Chair, I was just waiting for the red light. I think that I just want to double check the plans, and I need to go into the file. But it's my understanding that the bungalows have their own bin storage areas. But if I could just double check that and come back to you, please.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hornby, you want to come back on something briefly?
Yeah. Yes, Chair. It was just to confirm with regard to what Councillor Wright had said. The bungalows that back onto Lever Street will have their own bins at the back in the gardens, and they will be collected by the bin men themselves. So it'll be just like a normal bungalow. Thank you.
Thank you. We have therefore a straight for or against this application. It has been moved and seconded, and therefore it's for or against. Can we take the vote, please?
Yes, Chair. Straight for, against, or abstain. Councillor Abdullah.
For.
Councillor Connor. Councillor Connor. She's not there.
No.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Howarth.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Hornby.
For.
Councillor Mistry.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Newall.
For.
Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
Councillor Sanders. Councillor Sanders. Not there either. Councillor Sherrington.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
That's approved, Chair.
Thank
Sorry,
you very much.
Councillor Connor, you couldn't hear me before, but can you hear me now?
Hi, Councillor Connor. Yes. What's your
For.
vote, please?
For, please.
For.
Thank
You
you.
just script in there then.
Yes, thank you.
And Ms. Turner, you can now speak on bins.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I've just double checked the plans, and all of the bungalows have access to the rear of the properties, so the bins will be kept individually at each of the bungalows for use by the residents, so they won't need to rely on the bin stores for the extra care units. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. We come then to second application, Little Lever, on page 54, Little Lever Youth Centre. We have no speakers on this one, so Mr. Allen, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just like to draw members' attention to the supplementary list, page 3, bottom of page 3, some additional representations received from environmental health officers in terms of the potential impacts of the proposed canopies. They've recommended some hours restrictions to the use of that particular area. Also, the applicant has provided some clarification on the replacement gates, so they're to match the existing gates, albeit wider than existing. In terms of the canopies, that's also been clarified. They will be blue, but unlike the specification as shown on page 61 of the report, whereas the specification is for a Motiva Mono, which is a fixed canopy. The proposal now, we've had clarification off the school, it would be a retractable canopy. Unfortunately, we don't have details of the specific what it would look like, but it would still project the same amount as shown on the proposed drawings, and obviously span the same width of the rear part of the centre as well. The proposal is a relatively modest scheme. The reason why it is being brought to committee because it's a council proposal. We've had no representations from either ward councillors or local residents. The proposal is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I say there are no speakers on this one, so ward councillor, Councillor Hornby.
Yeah, Chair, can I just ask a question of the officer, please? I did indicate.
Yeah. Sorry, yes, I've seen that now. Yes, carry on.
Okay, yeah, Alex, just in relation to the late list and the restriction with regard to usage, can we also include the bank holidays with that, like we did on the previous application, with regard to it was mainly bank holiday Mondays and Christmas as well. We had problems with that in the past, as you'll be aware.
No, I mean, that's fine. I mean, bank holidays usually treated the same as Sundays anyway, so we could include reference to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, open the debate now, Councillor Hornby.
Thank you, Chair. This site is had many uses over the years in youth club. It was one of the pioneer children's centres of 2007, 2008, and it was the council's ambition to have children's centre in every ward. It struggled a little bit over the last few years usage because of the fact that everything's got to be accountable for it, and money is a little tighter than it was before. So now some of the usage of it is being used from obviously children from other parts of the borough, some of our special needs children in particular. And it's a minor application, this in itself, but we fully support it. In fact, there's no mention within the report of the fact that we did have meetings with Paul Rankin, all 3 ward councillors, and we fully support this application, in particular the widening of the gates, because on the previous application it was causing mayhem with vehicles parking at all times, annoying residents and all the rest of it. This takes that problem away in its entirety, and it's the first time in its history that I've actually known residents actually in full support of an application for this site. So I'm more than happy to move this application for approval, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to second.
Thank you. No other speakers? We'll take the vote in that case, please. Simple for or against, or abstain?
Yes, for, against, or abstain. We're voting for approval. Councillor Abdullah.
For.
Councillor Connor. For. Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Howarth.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Hornby.
For.
Councillor Mistry.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Newall.
For.
Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
Councillor Sanders.
For.
Councillor Sherrington.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
That's approved, Chair.
The application is approved. Thank you very much indeed. And then the final application on page 86. We need to bring a supporter in for this application.
Yes,
I
Chair.
believe.
I think Vicky's just giving him a ring now.
Yeah, Chair, I've just spoken to him and he's dialing in now.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, was the next item the Bolton interchange?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I just check, please, Chair? Councillor Howarth declared an interest in this before. Is she leaving the meeting or?
Councillor Howarth, have you left?
I can't see the participants, so I'm just want to double check.
Just
There is
doing
no
it.
response.
I'm sorry, I've not got my chat on. Just doing it, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, and just to say the supporter has now joined the meeting.
Thank you very much. Right, this is Bolton interchange. Mr. Mansell, please.
Chair, we seem to have lost Martin. He was with us.
He was?
Yeah, he's coming back.
Apologies, sir. I clicked the wrong button. Are you okay for me to do an
Right.
application?
Yes, please proceed.
Thanks. This application's at committee because if approved, it will be delivered by both Bolton Council and Transport for Greater Manchester. So it proposes to demolish the existing little used interchange, as obviously that's been replaced by the new interchange. There will be a new carriageway that would service a taxi rank, and also a two-way cycleway would be provided along the side. That would allow for cyclists to access Bolton Town Centre from the south, which is obviously difficult at the minute with Newport Street being one way, in fact impossible. It also proposes to relocate the pick-up drop-off area, which is currently on Trinity Street, which causes some some difficulties in terms of inappropriate behaviour from drivers. It's connected to the junction improvements that are underway at Trinity Street, which are to improve primarily the bus corridors between Bolton, Salford and Manchester. So there would be 14 spaces at the pick-up drop-off facility. 10 taxi spaces would be provided, which is a reduction from the previous 12. Just looking at the supplementary information that's been provided today, we sought some clarification on whether the works would be permitted development. Local highway authorities are entitled to do considerable works adjoining the public highway, but we felt this was perhaps a bit too much of a stretch of the word adjoining to do that, so we took the view that it does require planning permission. And lastly, obviously, I've apologised to Councillor Howarth for being a bit over enthusiastic with the autocorrect, as her name was corrected to Councillor Howard in the report, and she's accepted my apology with characteristic grace. So thanks, Chair. The application is recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. We have a supporter, Samuel Hyde. Mr. Hyde, you've got 3 minutes to address the committee, after which we'll invite you to take any questions from members.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Sam Hyde, Project Manager at Transport for Greater Manchester, the applicant, and speaking in favour of the application. As has kind of just been discussed, the application site forms part of a wider programme which is being delivered by Transport for Greater Manchester and Bolton Council, known as the Salford Bolton Network Improvements Programme, or SBNI. SBNI is a local growth deal funded programme that's seen the delivery of a number of interventions across Bolton and Salford, predominantly upgrades to highways junctions, although it's also included a number of upgrades to bus stops and also the redevelopment of Farmouth bus station. The primary purpose of the SBNI programme is to improve vehicle journey times whilst also delivering improved facilities for pedestrians and people on bikes. The scheme to redevelopment the former bus interchange will, we think, provide a more attractive gateway for people arriving into Bolton by demolishing the old interchange shelter structure and improving existing public realm. It will address the ongoing and long-standing issue of indiscriminate parking at the vehicle drop-off point on Trinity Street, and will provide further opportunities for increased active travel in Bolton town centre. As noted in the officer's report, this scheme will link into the soon-to-be completed Cyclops Junction at Trinity Street, Newport Street, and also into proposed junction upgrades at Trinity Street, Manchester Road. The scheme will also importantly provide a connection for bikes to get to Bolton Interchange by implementing a two-way cycle lane along the net length of Newport Street. In terms of how the development meets the council's policy, the scheme would positively contribute to the character and appearance of the area in accordance with policy CD3 of Bolton's core strategy. The scheme would support the strategic objectives of the core strategy, particularly strategic objective 1, which seeks to increase opportunities for walking and cycling. The scheme is aligned with policy P5 of the core strategy, which seeks to ensure that new development prioritises pedestrians, cyclists and public transport users over other motorised vehicle users, and that cycling is a realistic alternative travel choice to that of the private car. And the scheme would also contribute to the achievement of the objectives of the council's accessibility, transport and road safety SPD, which seeks to ensure that new development encourages people to walk, cycle and use public transport. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from members. Can I ask a question first of all? The drop-off zone you're suggesting, does that mean that the current drop-off point on Trinity Street will be abandoned?
Yeah, the plan is that a future scheme will be delivered, a junction improvement scheme will be delivered at the junction with Trinity Street and Manchester Road, which will see a two-way cycle lane which connects the two junctions, so that junction at the bottom of the bridge with the Newport Street Trinity Street junction, and removes the existing drop-off zone for parking, for cars.
So can I follow that one up, please? How does someone travelling from the west to the station, currently using Trinity Street to drop off, access if they're going on a circuitous route through Great Moor Street?
Someone travelling from the west would have to travel along Trinity Street, Bradshaw Gate, and then along Great Moor Street. It would be a longer journey to get to the drop-off.
Well, as a user, that to declare an interest, but all right. Councillor Peel, you have a question?
I do, Chair. You stole my first question.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Clearly, great minds think alike.
Yes, I possible when we come to the debate. So it's been confirmed that the drop-off zone on Trinity Street is going to be replaced with less spaces off Newport Street. Can I ask the applicant the involvement of Bolton Council's highways officers in this scheme, who are well aware of the premium parking in the area? Thank you.
Yes, of course. The scheme, the concept design for the scheme was something produced by Transport for Greater Manchester, but the more detailed design has been produced by the council's highways and engineering department. So this has been through a number of the council's officers before. Obviously, we've got to the stage of submitting a planning application.
Thank you. Councillor Sherrington, question.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask, if we've got a drop-off zone, that means that people going into the building and actually going and catching a train. What about the people who are coming off the train? Are they only capable then to get a taxi? Because quite simply, otherwise your drop-off zone would be absolutely clogged up with people waiting for people coming off a train that might be delayed, or they might get there a bit earlier because it's the traffic and so on. So I just wonder where all these people will go and what effect it would have on the drop-off zone.
The drop-off zone will have a waiting restriction applied to it, so that people will not be able to wait there for a prolonged period of time. So it will serve both people that are being collected from the station and people that are being dropped off. But as I say, there will be a limited waiting time there, so I wouldn't expect that people would just be able to kind of park up there and block up the spaces.
Right, I agree with that, and I quite, I agree that it should be a drop-off zone for people coming into the station. That's why I think Trinity Street needs to still be there for people who are picking people up. So I've got my problems with this particular application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. We come then to debate, and Councillor Peel, please. I'm sorry, before that, Councillor Peel, Councillor Abdullah, are you now saying you wanted a question?
Yes, I was typing while you mentioned that. Sorry, Chair.
Right, sorry, Mr. Hyde, can you just remain on the line to take a question from Councillor Abdullah, please?
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the waiting time. Sorry, not visible there. Something's happened. Okay, I'm going to go off camera because it's got a bit funny. Regarding the waiting restriction, will it be like a reasonable time? Because, trains can be late. I mean, I've often waited for my children and they say, oh, Mom, the train's late now. Some like there's sometimes 10-15 minutes extra. So how will you incorporate delayed trains and so on into that waiting time? Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Hyde, are you still there?
He's left.
I'm sorry, he seems to have left us.
All right, no worries.
We note the question, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Peel.
Oh.
Mr. Mansell, do you want to respond?
Well, I was just going to have a go at. I mean, it would be for our highway engineers to impose a traffic regulation order on the for the waiting time, but the traffic regulation order itself would not be part of the planning application. We have separate processes by which traffic regulation orders are pursued, and that would be for our colleagues in highways to promote that and to come up with a reasonable period for it.
Thank you, Chair.
Right.
Chair, I think Mr. Hyde is back. Chair, I think Mr. Hyde has come back into the meeting.
My apologies, I got cut off the line.
Right. The question related to traffic regulation order, I think Mr. Mansell answered that would be a matter for Bolton Highways rather than this application.
Correct, yeah, I would agree.
Thank you. Come then to debate at last. Councillor Peel.
Third time lucky. Just waiting for it to go live, Chair.
Yes, sorry,
Councillor Peel, just carry on. It's just taking its time.
Okay. When I first saw the application come in, I thought, oh, brilliant, about time. This needed something doing with it, and as has been discussed for quite a while since the new interchange opened, but the discussions about this junction have been going on for years. In particular, the quite dangerous parking sometimes that we see on Trinity Street. But when I read the details of the application, I have to say, I don't think we're live anymore, Chair. I'll just pause.
We can hear you. All right, carry on.
Live again now. When I saw the details of the application, I must admit I was quite disappointed. I think there is a massive opportunity here to improve the situation at that junction that is potentially going to be missed. I understand completely that it is clearly cycling-led scheme. It is a cycling-led scheme, that's quite clear to everybody, but one of the priorities, if not the main priority, for access to this interchange and the train station is the ability for drop-off, for dropping passengers off and picking passengers up, and that is not addressed at all. And what we actually now see is a reduction, a net reduction in the amount of space available for people to drop off and pick up. There's a net reduction in the Hackney spaces, which is an issue on itself, could possibly be resolved by removing what seems to me a loading bay in the wrong place on the plan. A reduction in Hackney spaces, but a net reduction in spaces for people to drop off and pick up friends and relatives, and for the Hackney, for private hire cars as well. By closing the drop-off zone on Trinity Street and relocating it to Newport Street, it has led to a net reduction, and that is a real pity, because there is a massive issue here, and what this scheme will do will be to exacerbate the existing problems. And I'll make a prediction: putting a cycle lane down Trinity Street will not stop cars pulling up and parking in that, unless the council is proposing to build out the curb and actually get rid of that bay completely. Cars will still pull in there, so we're going to have what could end up being quite an unenforceable highways position there, because as we know, the council is not allowed to use camera cars to enforce these types of TROs, and as soon as a traffic warden approaches the car, they simply move on within the observation period. And I asked the applicant, had discussions taken place with highways officers, and he confirmed yes they had. And I looked at the report and I looked at comments from highways officers, and highways officers have not mentioned anything at all to do with the current dangerous congestion at that area. This could have been an opportunity to double the amount of drop-off and pick-up. It could have been an opportunity to divide drop-off from pick-up. There could have been various things that could have been done here. We could have segregated private hire, for example, from other people dropping off and picking up. But what we've ended up with this scheme is, as I say, a missed opportunity to do that. This solution, there's a couple of solutions actually to this, which I'd be interested in what other members would have a view on that is, one, not to do the cycle lane down Trinity Street, which would involve minimal impact and benefit to cyclists, and retain the existing drop-off there, therefore net increase in the number of drop-off and pick-up spaces. The second one, or in addition to that, would be to speak to Transport for Greater Manchester about whether or not the existing 3, I think, bus stands on Newport Street itself are required, and whether or not they could be relocated within the interchange. I don't know what particular routes they serve or whether that will be possible, but that would be another solution in order to actually create more drop-off and pick-up on Newport Street itself. Chair, I'm unhappy with this, and I just think that these types of discussions should have gone on well before this application was brought in for this committee to consider. I think if this goes through in its current form, it will be a long time before we get another opportunity to have a look at this situation. Perhaps the multi-storey car park on the junction of Trinity Street might add some benefit if there's the ability of very short stay parking in there, but I don't think it's going to alleviate it that much. I am prepared, Chair, to defer, to move deferral of this application, so that the issues that have risen about Trinity Street becoming a cycle lane, about the absolute need to retain the bus shelters on Newport Street itself, whether or not those 2 locations could be re-looked at to create more drop-off and pick-up. I think if we don't defer it and this goes through as it is, the issues that we currently see and the complaints that we currently get from members of the public and from private hire and hackney drivers is going to increase massively. So I would urge the committee to support me on this if they would, and let's just ask those questions and take this opportunity to make this a better scheme whilst we have the chance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. I'm going to take the opportunity to second you, Councillor Peel, on this occasion, because I think exactly as you set out, this is a missed opportunity if we lose some of those drop-off points. And to talk about traffic from the west having to go via Bradshaw Gate and Great Moor Street to re-access Newport Street, I think will be detrimental. So I'm happy to second Councillor Peel on deferment, but I know there are no other speakers. Councillor Sherrington. Councillor Sherrington.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I thought Councillor Abdul was before me, but there you go.
Oh.
Councillor Abdullah has got in for speaking.
She had a question. She's withdrawn it, I think.
Oh, is she? All right. Sorry. Well, that's why I was caught on the hop. Sorry about that. Can I first of all say I welcome some of the things that have come through on this application. I would certainly welcome the fact that the buses have been taken off Newport Street and put into the interchange. I think that's a really good idea, and possibly at the time when the interchange was done, I thought it was quite strange that they were left where they were. However, the other thing as well is the problem that we've got with Trinity Street. I do feel that taking that parking away from there for people picking up people from the railway station is just not thought through at all. I just wonder whether there's been any talking to the different groups, like the disabilities group, for instance, or the people who, there's like a group that's to do with the railways, that's a voluntary group. I just wondered whether anybody been in touch with them, or even the cyclists who use the railway as well, you know, because quite simply, the big problem that we have with that interchange at the moment is the fact that both entrances you can go in on. And I'm sure that if we had it, so we had this as a drop-off, this new application as a drop-off, and was given very short time for dropping people off, and have the entrance only at the front there near that, as on Newport Street, and have the entrance that is at the moment on Trinity Street to actually just have that as an exit, and on Trinity Street actually have it that those are the pick-up places on Trinity Street. And I've thought about the bikes as well, that they're putting in the cycleway. Would be no reason why that couldn't be the case for it to stay there and just be taken in as part of the pathway, because the pathway is very, very wide for pedestrians going down Trinity Street on that section. So I don't think it would do any harm if everything was brought together there. And then we could actually put a fence up then to stop people going in on the exit. We could put a fence across so cars couldn't drop anybody off there, because that's what the huge problem is at the moment. We've got cars pulling in there, dropping people off or picking people up and actually blocking the road because the parking into the highway as well. So it makes it absolutely impossible, especially in rush hour, to get down Trinity Street. So I think that they wouldn't be able to do that because it would be an exit only. So they wouldn't be able to go in there. So they'd have to park up. And then if you've got a situation where people are late coming off the trains, it wouldn't have a huge impact on anybody else who was doing drop-off on the other side. So I think all this sort of thing needs to be talked about, and rather than just saying yes to this and then sort of sorting something else out afterwards, because it always makes it very difficult if you try to do that, because there's always somebody who says, oh, well, you agreed to this and we're doing it now, you know. So I'd rather us defer this. So I will be supporting deferment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Chair. I think the only thing that we can do with this is defer it. It's such an important scheme for the town centre as a whole. The transport interchange is the heart of the town centre, and the developments that are going to take place over the next few years. We need to make sure that we get this right. One thing is clear, something does need to be done, and it does need to be approved quite soon. I do believe in that. So I'm totally happy to support deferment. I do think that maybe we need to make a decision soon, so maybe not the next meeting, the latest, the meeting after, but these discussions need to take place quite quickly. I have regular meetings with the taxi trade as I'm Vice Chair of Licensing, and this is an issue, and the only way, we do need to sort this out, but you only need to go to the junction at any time of the day, to see that there is a problem, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, evening, when the trains come later on in the evening. There is an issue, and we do need to get this right, and we need to get it right first time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Peel, you want to come back briefly? Then I'm going to take the vote.
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. Thank you for seconding, which is potentially assured that it will be deferred. No members dissented. I just want to just reiterate what we're asking for here. Our highways officers, particularly those who deal with transport issues and parking services, are well aware of the problems here. I'd be amazed if they'd been consulted and not said anything. So I would ask that they are in particular consulted. I'm very aware that our director there is painfully aware of this, because he's constantly dealt with a string of complaints when I had the exec member position. So I just want to make sure that that's what we're doing. We're going back to our highways officers and we're saying, look, how can we use this scheme as an opportunity to improve the drop-off pickup situation that currently exists, not to make that situation worse. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. Councillor Peel, in supporting deferral, I would want to see some wider consultation, so I concur with your comments on that one. It's therefore been proposed and seconded that this item stands deferred. It is a simple for or against or abstain.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Abdullah.
For.
Councillor Connor.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Hornby.
For.
Councillor Mistry.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Newall.
For.
Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
Councillor Sanders.
For.
Councillor Sherrington.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
It's deferred, Chair.
That stands deferred. Thank you very much indeed. We come then to the final item on the agenda, and that is the planning appeals report. Councillor Hayes, you had a comment, a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's on the St Helens Road one, which has been withdrawn. Am I right that this is similar to a case in Smithills recently, because the use classes have been changed so that the offices and restaurants are now in the same class, that this change can now be made without even coming through for a planning application? And is that perhaps why it's been withdrawn?
Officer to respond to that, please. Mr. Manley or Mr. Allen?
683D.
Hi. Hello. Sim, do you want to say this? Sorry, Sim.
Yeah, certainly. I don't know the specific details of this particular appeal, but yes, there has been a change in the permitted development legislation. So I think what they may have done is withdrawn it just because a movement between those use classes now doesn't require express permission. So we can certainly come back on that to the member and to get that confirmed. But I would imagine the reason why that's taking place is because of the change in the permitted development rights.
We'll check on
the
that.
reason I asked, Chair.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. The reason I ask, and a lot of councillors may not be aware of this because it went through by statutory instrument, but from the 1st of September, shops, offices, cafes and restaurants are all now in the same use class. It was intended, I think, to make changes in town centres easier, but it has another effect of making quite massive changes in use that can happen now without planning application. I don't know whether this one, I'm not particularly interested whether this one is what they're intending to do, but it is perhaps an unintended consequence of the change of the classes.
Councillor Hayes will seek clarification on this application and the principle that you raise and report back to members in that case. Thank you for that. That's the whole of business. Can I remind members that we have a special meeting of this committee on Wednesday week, the 25th it will be, with a briefing in the morning on various planning matters, not a specific planning application, but on various planning matters, and officers will lead effectively a member refresher training session on that occasion, and the meeting will take place as usual in the afternoon of that day, not on the Thursday as normal. That being the whole of business, can I thank you for your attendance and declare the meeting closed?
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Good day.